these two verses kind of, I don't know, I wouldn't say prodded me, but got me into thinking. I just want to clarify before I get in this video, I'm not trying to tear different denominations down. I'm not one of, I feel that there's so much tension between denominations, but I want to kind of emphasize how these verses kind of, anyway, we'll just read the verses anyway. So this is in Luke 11 from verse 27. As Jesus was saying these things, a woman in the crowd called out, "Blessed is the woman who gave you birth and nursed you." He replied, "Blessed rather are those who hear the words of God and obey it." Now, I did not long do a video, so this may come a bit of a contradiction, but not a contradiction at the same time. So in my last video, not my last video, but one of the videos I did recently was how we tend to kind of ignore Mary until around Christmas time, depending on what denomination. And actually she's a good example of, you know, faith and all that sort of thing. But these two verses, as you notice here, is that this woman had said, you know, "Blessed the mother who gave birth to Jesus," and then Jesus replies saying, "I'd rather you bless." Blessed rather are those who hear the word of the gospel and obey it. And I found that very interesting. Now, I'm not going to go back to my video that I did do. I do still think some denominations will push Mary aside a little too much, but then in some Christians, but then again, I think that some denominations, well, one denomination and some Christians will overly emphasize Mary by obviously in other in other saints as well, but I'm just going to focus on this one here, because obviously this one is, you know, more on about Mary here. And I feel that these two verses kind of is basically Jesus saying, focus on the word. Yes, my mother has given birth to me. Yes, you know, it's a blessing and everything like that. But at the end of the day, you know, I'm more important. God's more important. Not saying there's nothing wrong with kind of respect to Mary. Mary is supposed to be one of those figures that is supposed to be like someone you look up to, as somebody who kind of obeyed God and that kind of thing. And then what's happened after is like misinterpretations of the word and stuff. And we have like the rosaries. Don't get me wrong, I do have a rosary. I just don't use it as a praying tool. I just wear them because I think they're pretty. But anyway, that's not even the point. But I feel that I know some will argue and say we're not putting her a higher thing, but it's what Jesus said. This woman here is saying blessed, like she's giving emphasis of how blessed that Mary is, while, you know, being in the facility of Jesus and obviously listening to Jesus talk. And Jesus is saying, blessed rather those who hear the word of God and obey it. So there's kind of one of those lines that's clearly drawn here. There's nothing wrong as a modern day Christian to look at Mary and think, wow, she's a good example of what obedience is, you know, you know, how much trust she had in God. There's nothing wrong with that. But then that line is then crossed when we start kind of using her as that bridge to, well, I don't know much about this, but they then using her as a bridge to God or to Jesus, when Jesus was the bridge and is always the bridge. So this is just one of those verses I feel that a lot of people should meditate and just listen, because I feel that at this point here Jesus is drawing the line as to kind of how much respect we do put on his mother.